Hey everyone, welcome back. Sorry for the delay on getting this one out. I've been practicing for some tournaments and doing some other stuff, but let's jump into it. So, we have today Maru's famous 2-1-1 build. He was even asked at I am Katowice why he only plays 2-1-1, which is just just a insane comment I think to ask somebody, but it's really funny anyway. This build is extremely versatile, can be used in all matchups. I would say TVT is actually probably not as strong. That's what we're watching today. We're watching Maru versus ByuN. TVT, Maru's 2-1-1 opening. And this was during the Korean Starcraft League hosted by Davetesta and Chickenman. I think those are every they're every Friday Korean time, Korean Standard Time, KST 12 p.m. So like 12 in the afternoon Korean time. Definitely check those guys out. That's where I'm getting a lot of these videos from, and that's another tournament I should be playing and starting soon. So that we'll probably have my own videos or my own gameplays up here. So that should be interesting. We can analyze my mistakes and we can start going into what not to do. And I think that might be kind of fun. So 2-1-1 opens up very standard. You know, you get your first SCV to build the depot into the barracks, and then barracks gas at the same time. Also, notes, replays, build order, all of that is in the comment section below, pinned to the top. So if you have any questions or need a refresher or want, more insight or more general insight, definitely check that out. I like this little subtle detail too of sending the SCV and maintaining at least 12 workers on the mineral line at all times. It's subtle things like that that you notice that professional players do. I'm gonna ignore a lot of the chat in this game. They do talk a lot. I did try to translate it, but Google Translate's not my friend. So we got a Reaper coming out. We did send out our scouting SCV. Reaper, Orbital, second CC. He's just gonna go up, he's gonna double check. He goes, alright, check that out. He's going factory first, so we know he has double gas right now. That's pretty easy to know, which means he's probably gonna be making a couple Reapers. He might be making a couple Hellions. So we'll probably play a little bit more defensive because we won't have as many units. This is also the important part too when doing this build. You drop the second command center after your orbital and Reaper, right? And then you drop your supply depot at the normal time, and that's what you're going to use to gauge when to drop your next barracks as the kind of golden standard. I also like this build because you don't have to pull off gas. You don't have to do a lot of micromanagement there. It's just pretty simple. Depot finishes. Our barracks is up. We're constantly producing SCVs. We never stop. And we're throwing up a bunker at the front. I really like this move. This is really good. You can also turn this into a partial wall off, which I really like as well. By having it like next to the command center and then using two supply depots, you can make like a really long wall off, which makes it hard for. It's usually better against like Zerg, I would say, or Protoss, Protoss is that favor Law Zealot run bys. That way you don't have to dismantle it later. You can kind of keep it up until you're ready to disassemble it. Another thing, this is really good for TVT and TVP specifically, because if you were in, say, Terran versus Protoss, one stalker coming up the ramp and shooting your Marines who are just standing there is really bad. Any two-gate pressure, early two-gate pressure is stifled by the bunker and makes it a little bit easier. Gives you a nice, solid foundation at the front to protect yourself. And same goes for versus Terran. If they try to run up with Hellions, you're going to do a significant amount of damage and possibly kill a Hellion. Or do a lot of damage to them to the point where they don't even attack you. So because it's TVT, we see ByuN going for two Reapers. And then as soon as he hits that the gas requirement, he drops his factory. As soon as he gets that 100 gas. We're not getting our... There we go. There it is. Then we get our second gas as soon as possible. It was a little bit delayed here, but that's fine. It was like half a second delayed, I guess. So not the biggest deal, honestly. And I like what he's doing with these Reapers. If you know the Terran opponent went with this 2 gas factory build, you know they're going to have, 2 to 3 Hellions. They're going to have 3 to 4 Reapers. So it's better to just kind of hang out and not push across the map and lose your Reapers. You kind of already know how the early game is going to go. So it just kind of keeps it simple. After our factory goes down, we're dropping the reactor on our barracks. We're turning this into an orbital. I will say I think the third CC is a little bit more delayed on this, and I think you can hit a pretty strong 6-minute timing with this build. I think you can then just keep on consistent pressure, starting from I think 5 minutes. And because it's TVT, we're going to open up with Hellions. If it's TVP, I recommend a Widow Mine, unless they're going for a bunch of adepts. But you can open up with a Widow Mine instead here. Our second barracks, as soon as it finished, we started a tech lab. We got our reactor on the other barracks. We started stim with our first 100 gas. We're actually not dropping our starport yet, and that's why we're building Hellions. So I'd start stim and then start the Widow Mine if you're in TVP. And this build also leads into a Widow Mine drop if you want to do that. Versus Zerg, it leads into good bio pressure. It opens up into even like a Banshee opening, or if you're kind of crazy, you can even go for a battle cruiser opening by taking this gas a little bit quicker. And then as soon as our stim started, we started saving up our gas for our next starport. And then we're starting a reactor on our factory, and we're going to swap those guys. Also, I did kind of forget, I like to do this thing where we do benchmarks. So let's go to the 3-minute mark, and we're just going to do a quick benchmark. And this is how I would compare myself. If you're trying to improve, compare your own replays. Like if in a game where you haven't been harassed, or it's been like a really tame early game, you haven't lost a lot of units, you haven't been cheesed, it's really good to compare yourself to the pro replays. So the best way to do that is check out the mineral line. So we see we're pretty much fully saturated. We just have one SCV over here building our factory, and then it's fully saturated. Our second base is turning into an orbital right now. We have 2 barracks, one with the reactor, one with the tech lab building on it, and our factory is coming up now. As for overall units, we have 24 SCVs, and actually, funnily enough, so does ByuN. So 24 SCVs at 3 minutes, it seems to be the key right there. Back to Mars Vision. We have 2 Reapers, 1 Marine. Obviously, this could be different for everyone depending on what you open with. Like for instance, if it wasn't TVT and you didn't want to go Reapers, it was TVP, you'd probably have 3 Marines right now instead of 3 Reapers, or 2 Marines and a Reaper. And that's the benchmark. The benchmarks are also in that notes that I mentioned previously as well, in the comment section. Speaking of the comment section, if you guys have other replays or pro plays that you want me to analyze, let me know. If there's interesting builds you want to see or anything like that, definitely drop a comment, point me in the right direction. If you have the replay, even better, but sometimes it's not even necessary if you just tell me what event it was from. Event, game name, who played it, and what the build is. Or even if you have your own build and you want to send me a replay, I'm sure we could work something out that way. I'm sure we could set something up. Alright, so we're back to the point where I went back in time. So we have our factory starting our reactor and our starport. The main reason you're going to do this is you're not producing out of this factory. You don't need to in TVT. We have our 1 Hellion. We can go up to 2 Hellions, but we're more focused on marine production at this point, so we'd rather use our minerals there and for SCVs. So we're going to use our factory to build this reactor, and this reactor is immediately going to go onto the starport. All part of our sick timing plan that we're setting up. So checking the vision for Maru, we do spot the drop coming in from ByuN. Good reaction time. That was a hard one. So what I would like to do here, if I was in Maru's shoes, I would set like 2 or 3 Marines here and the rest over here in this kind of back alcove area. Since there's a lot of dead space here, that's probably where he's going to drop from. He kind of does that. Here's the medevac coming in. Let's see, Reaper, a couple Marines, Hellion. So pretty easy to hold drop. And what I really like here is that he doesn't immediately pull all of his workers. He actually is pretty like calm about it. He just kind of moves his army to position away from them. Because if ByuN's army went for this worker line, we would have gotten a huge collapse and just killed everything. So we ended up not losing anything. We did swap our starport and factory, so we're looking good there. And we fended up the first drop. As for saturation, we're still continually pumping SEVs. Maru is the macro god, so it's really good to pay attention to his macro in particular. All right, so we see that medevac. It looked, this is the beauty of that bunker too. He kind of went in, saw the bunker, and was like, nah. And that's also what this question mark is. He's like, why is there a bunker there? But so here's the cool part. So we're approaching 5 minutes. Our stim just finished. Stim's done. We have two medevacs popping out. We have a bunch of Marines. We're starting our first our first siege tank. Also, sorry, I forgot to mention you start the engineering bay at about 4. It's factory, second gas, second rack. Oh, sorry, factory. Oh my god, I'm messing this up brutally. In the notes, I was looking at the wrong section of the notes. So it's when your tech lab finishes at 100%. This is from the 3-minute mark. This is everything we've done. Tech lab finishes, you start stim and marine production. Reactor finishes, you start marine production. Your next 150 gas, you start your starport and a reactor on your factory. You swap these two when they're done. You grab your third gas up here. As soon as these are swapped over, then you start your engineering bay. And this will kind of finish up for when our second attack hits, our +1 damage. And there we go. Now we're caught up. And I apologize for that. That was a little bit messy. Like I said, check the notes. The notes are much more detailed and organized than I am trying to talk about the game, because there's a lot to talk about that I think it's better that works. There's something that works better in voice form and other things that work better in a written form. So this is kind of more everything that's going on in spur of the moment, something that jumps into my head of what I think is good and isn't good. So yeah. Anyway, so right at the 5-minute mark, we're going to do our second benchmark here. We got 2 barracks, 1 tech lab, 1 reactor. Stim just finished. We got our starport. We have 2 medevacs that just popped. Our first siege tank is on the way with our factory and tech lab. Our eBay is almost done. We are almost fully saturated on minerals on our second. We're pretty much fully saturated on our main. If you go to our units, we got 40 SCVs total. So your goal, your benchmark, you want to be trying to hit like 35 to 40 SCVs by the 5-minute mark if you haven't been harassed. So as soon as these medevacs pop, we pick up all of our Marines. All of our Marines, and before they pop, so we actually sent our Hellion and our Reaper over to kind of check out what our opponent had, what units he has. And we're going for a big drop. Meanwhile, ByuN looks for a drop, doesn't find one, runs away for some reason. Actually could have done a lot of damage. But I think he also noticed as soon as there wasn't anything in here, he's like, oh no, I'm about to be dropped, or he's pushing out on the map somewhere. So let's follow this this drop, and then we're gonna go back in time and check out the production and macro side. So we scan first to make sure we're not going to be dropping into any siege tanks that are sitting in the mineral line, or if there are siege tanks somewhere around here, we know not to drop here, basically. We do see a cyclone, so that's going to be our first target. We're going to boost in and try to drop all of our units on that cyclone to pick it off, which, because of ByuN's reaction time, he does get into a really good position. And then this is also insane by ByuN. Dropping these defense matrices on the medevacs is such a cool idea. I never see that. Normally, I just see people spam the turrets. But we're just trying to find as much damage as possible. We don't want to lose everything. That would kind of hurt. but we're mostly just trying to deal as much damage as we can to ByuN and keep him at home, because this is all of our force, right? So if he was pushed out across the map, hopefully it brings him back. But if he wasn't, it turned to a base trade situation. And it hits really early. It hits at like 5:30 roughly. So usually most timing attacks hit around the 6 to 7 minute timing for a lot of timing attacks that focus on like winning the game essentially off 1 or 2 bases, or mostly 2 bases. 1 base timings usually hit a little bit quicker. For instance, I think like a Banshee hits at like in TvZ, a Banshee timing hits at like 5:30 roughly. So if our opponent was doing something weird, it would have completely killed him. And I like this where he keeps just kind of dropping, trying to find a little bit more damage. And now we have 2 tanks. We're throwing down our next 2 barracks. We did float our starport. After our first 2 medevacs popped out, we floated. Oh yeah, let's just go back. What am I doing? Go back to while the drop is happening. It's the beauty of replays. So 5 minutes, the drop goes out of the base. So now let's look at the production side in the macro, and we are going to speed it up ×2. River parts. We start our tech lab, we float our starport to build a new reactor, and we build our 3rd barracks. The 3rd barracks goes on this reactor. We're continuing siege tank production. We're starting our +1 weapons. We're getting our 4th gas. There we go. I thought it was a little bit early. So I guess to kind of summarize or kind of go through it quickly, floating our starport. We made 2 medevacs. That's all we needed for now. So we want more barracks. We want more production. To sustain tanks and medevacs, we need more gas. So we're going to get more gas. Makes sense to me. +1's on the way. We're going to want armor eventually after this. We're going to want to expand to our 3rd base behind this as well. If you actually look at Maru's minerals, it's a dead giveaway. That's what we're planning to do. So we have 355, 95. So we're going to want to drop that 3rd command center after our 1st siege tank drops. It's kind of like directions. Like, you know, when you get directions when you're driving and it's easier to use like a landmark, like, oh, okay, I know at this McDonald's I turn right. It's how my brain works is like, okay, after my 1st siege tank, drop this. Or, you know, after my tech lab's done, start stem. You know, I just use like weird benchmarks and waypoints basically to I find it easier and better than being like, oh, well, I have 76 supply, which is so, I just think it's so dumb to try to go off supply. Past the 2 minute mark, like past the 2 or 3 minute mark, I think supply doesn't matter at all. Don't be trying to base your build order off of supply. Instead, focus on timings and the like the waypoints, like the guide stones, I guess. Like, okay, after my factory drops, then what am I looking to do? After my starport drops, then what am I looking to do? And that kind of keeps your brain going on that path of like, you're just marking things off of a checklist, right? You're hitting everything, and it makes it harder to forget things, right? And that's kind of what I do. That's why I like the benchmarks. That's how I set up my notes. I put the build orders still available, so you can kind of just see the general outline of things. But yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk on how to improve with StarCraft. I hope you enjoyed. So that drop is going on right now. We do see Maru kind of leaving a couple SCVs around. He's overpopulating. He's late on his command center. There it is, finally. He accidentally banked an extra 200 minerals. Even the god Terran does it, guys. Don't worry. You aren't alone. It's just a little sloppy play. So now that we have our 3 barracks up, we got 2 with reactors, 1 with a tech lab. We got our starport. We got our factory. We're going up to 3 bases. What do we want more? Well, we're going to start having a lot of money soon, especially with both of our bases fully saturated. So we're going to want to build more barracks so we can scale our production so we can go harder. So our 2nd tank comes out, and then boom. We're like, okay, we're gonna hold off on building this next tank until we start our next 2. When these 2 finish, 1-1's gonna finish. We're gonna have combat shields up and running. We're gonna be good. So let's push out. Let's go put the pressure on Maru now, or on ByuN. Sorry, we have 2 siege tanks. We know he has like 2 siege tanks and a handful of Marines. So we know our armies are about even. So what we can do is, while we're expanding, the safest thing we can possibly do is attack, right? Make expansion, then defense. I think that's what I was to say. Shout out to Wyra, awesome guy. But we're going to be expanding, right? So we don't want to be attacked. That's the last thing we want. So we'd rather have the offensive. We know ByuN's not out on the map because we just held him at home with our last drop. So let's go and contain ByuN, so that way we can get up our third base really free and delay his. Let's get further ahead, basically. And then our +1 will finish at the same time, giving us a huge advantage. Oh, but hey, look, ByuN's dropping us. So this is a little bit unfortunate. I did like Maru trying to preemptively stop any drops from happening. I think the missile turret should have been a little bit earlier. He definitely had the money for it. I think 1 missile turret here and then 1 missile turret here. About, I'd say after you drop this command center and start your next factor, or your next siege tanks, and that will kind of dissuade a lot of drops. But you know what? We aren't that far away, so it's not a big problem. We aren't going to stim. We're not going to go crazy. We're actually just going to pull our units. I don't know if I agree with canceling the 3rd CC there. What I like in this position is I would like to keep that 3rd CC up. Maybe ByuN, or I know, maybe not ByuN, but lower level players will try to focus it down and spend a lot of time attacking that, so I lose less infrastructure. Like, instead he could have stemmed up, or I guess his stem's not done, but it's about to be done. But he can stem up here and deny my +1. That would suck. That puts us at a pretty bad spot, actually. He could snipe these reactors of this tech lab before I come back. So I would rather keep that 3rd CC and let it soak some damage, because they're pretty tanky, especially with SCVs. And we pull the troops. We set up a siege tank. We pull the boys, and we just dive on those tanks and kill everything. And there was a frontal kind of poke with ByuN's units, his early game units of his Reaper and his Hellions. This is a really good move by ByuN. Unfortunately, we have a bunker, so we don't have to worry about it. I mean, he doesn't know that there's only 1 Marine in there, but bunkers are scary, man. There we go, and we're back to normal. If I feel like our 3rd CC could have lived there. If it was getting lower, yeah, definitely cancel it. But I think it would have just bought us more time and we would have lost less, considering we did end up losing 14 SCVs as a whole. If we go to our units tab, we're down 10 SCVs entirely. But we are up 1 tank. We're up 12 Marines. We're up 2 medevacs. He does have 2 Vikings on us and his Widow Mine, which is kind of interesting. But you know, our army supply is looking pretty good. If you compare directly army supply, active forces. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I want Control A. We have 10 more army supply. We have 11 more army supply because he has 10 more workers than us. So our army's bigger. You know, I mean, that makes sense. We have exactly 10 Marines. So we did just kill a lot of his units. We took relatively minimal army losses. We took economic losses. But yeah, it does suck. Oh, let's actually go back because I do want to look at this really quickly too. Yeah, it's definitely sucks that it puts us in that position, but you know what? We know we have the army advantage, so let's push across the map, and then maybe we can get back ahead economically, start our 3rd command center, and push ahead. So we do. The nice thing about these guys still being live is they're like forward scouts. We do see this army from ByuN, so we just immediately siege up and try to pull them back into us. You never want to walk into the siege tank fight. We load everything into medevacs because it's faster than walking there. And we're just keeping on the production, baby. Should start up this gas again and try to get our 3rd base up and going. But ByuN kind of goes into a kill mode where he just starts rallying everything across the map. So he's rallying into the center of the map, which I like more, and I think he'll readjust it once he gets a forward position. But he's basically rallying it to the safest, closest position. Now, the scary thing about doing this is if ByuN does decide to go for a drop, like a Mass Doom drop, 3 to 4 medevacs, because he does have 3 medevacs available. If he does go for that Mass Doom drop, it's now a base trade scenario. But if it's a base trade scenario, we have +1 done, and his is still 2 minutes away. It's about a minute and 10 seconds away. And look at that. There's the drop, which means, you know what? I know you don't have much defending this. I'm going to stem up the ramp and kill anything that's scary. So he immediately jumps in, goes for the Liberator and the Siege Tank, cleans those up pretty easy, and then worries about all the ground forces after. Now, if these Vikings were landed, I feel like it would be a little bit harder, but still they're like basically made of paper, so wouldn't have been as bad for Maru. And then we immediately, after we clean up all the SCVs here, we want to dive this infrastructure. Just take it out as fast as possible. We pulled our boys. We're staying out of the range of the siege tanks at home. We have a medevac, and we're just kind of biding our time a little bit, waiting for him to overextend. And then every time he overextends, we're going to try to move forward and kill stuff. So that was a really good trade for us in the base trade scenario. We've locked off this natural expansion. No workers are getting out. We're on top of the production, so we're killing anybody that spawns. We have this nice little hefty force back here. We're flying all of our stuff away. Like, F this, I'm out. We didn't lift our first command center, unfortunately, but, you know, what can you do? But, yeah, because we're on top of the production, and because we have just a way bigger army, like, we win the base trade. As long as we float one command center away and this stuff, we can even use these workers because we have orbitals. So we can use these workers and the Marines to deal as much damage as possible to ByuN's remaining forces to make the base trade even harder for him. But really, the build isn't about the base trade, right? There's a lot of things that turn this game into a base trade, but I want to go back and focus on the build order itself and how versatile and good it is. You can use it in every single matchup. If you're trying to find one solid build to get better at macroing and microing and playing Terran in general, it's probably going to be the 2-1-1. It leads to a safer early game. It leads to a lot of build diversity in case your opponent goes something weird, or in case you want to play a more of a countery play style. It leads into a lot of just different aspects, and it makes bio transitions really easy since you're already at 2 barracks when you want to go up to 3, and then that magic number of 5, and then again at 8 when you're on 3 bases. So this is the build I would recommend any new player or anybody trying to ladder or anybody just trying to generally improve. This is the build you should have in your repertoire. The one that you should probably have the most practice on, as it's just mechanically good, mechanically sound. This, and I think the Proxy 2 racks are probably, I would say, like, this is probably what I'm ended up playing in the tournament. So, yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. Again, leave a comment if you have a specific video, match, replay, tournament, etc. that you want me to cover. I'd be happy to do analysis. If you have your own replays that you want me to check out and do some partial free coaching, I'm happy to do that as well. We'll get something set up in the comment section that you guys can start dumping your replays into, and then I'll happily take a look at those. And then lastly, yeah, stay tuned for my tournament performances. I plan on doing a lot of like weekly cups, smaller things in the meantime until I get better. And yeah, we'll be recording my failures and putting those on this channel. So thanks everyone, and I hope you have a good time. Bye.